Hi there, it's HYZ Marie here, and we're only 2 weeks away from Artfight. So like any participating artist, I'm crunching to get references out for all my original characters. And anyway, getting all these reference sheets out was making me think of doing a video on how I design characters. So that's what we're doing today. There are a few main things to consider when designing a character: inspiration, shape language, physical features and faces, outfits, and color palettes. First, inspiration. I usually get inspiration for a character by combining a few concepts. Some concepts I've used include a Catgirl Inkling, a Zonai with an aesthetic based on tribal-looking masks, P.T. Barnum as a dragon, and Ghibli from Wings of Fire as a D&D character. So yeah, I pull from a lot of sources. Generally, for fan characters, I take an idea from another fandom, or another piece of the same fandom, and slap it onto my new character. If these ideas are pretty different, you usually end up with something unique in the translation, but this is also a way to kickstart the process, to get your initial idea out before you start refining it. For instance, when designing characters for The Legend of Zelda, I slapped 2 or 3 unrelated games together. When designing D&D characters, I nab existing media and warp it to fit the campaign world I'm playing in. Often, I get inspired for a fan character when I interact with an interesting tidbit of lore, like mammals being extinct in Splatoon, or Endermen maybe having been humans once, and then I make a character who explores that concept more. One fantastic idea you can use is species integration. If you're making a Splatoon character, for instance, find some interesting aquatic life to base their design around, like an eel or a jellyfish. Mudwing from Wings of Fire, find a cool swamp animal, or plant. This will usually bend canon rules for fan characters, but it's up to you how much you want to include your chosen animal and how much you want to stick to canon. Just remember that strictly canon OCs can often be forgettable. One example of this is my Inkling idol Krait. She's based off a sea krait, a type of highly venomous sea snake. Her long ponytail is striped like a sea krait, and her tentacles have been cut to have forked ends like snake tongues. There aren't any Inklings that canonically have striped or forked tentacles, but I figured that the fork shape can be cut like the flat hairstyles you can choose, and the stripes just sort of fell into the box of, idols bend the rules anyway. While the explanations are there, the reasoning being a little flimsy didn't stop me from adding those details to my character. My rule is, if the reasoning is believable within the canon media, then it's fair game. And this means different things for different fandoms. A Zelda OC might rely on that franchise having generally fuzzy lore, while one made for D&D will have to comply with the mechanics of the game. In general, steal everything from real life and media, put your own spin on it, and add reasoning to why your character is that way, but don't worry too much about breaking canon, cause I'll let you in a little secret here. Most official writers don't worry that much about it either. This is your spin on something, not just what's been done before. Alright, now that you've got a concept, your OC needs a clear visual identity to set them apart. The first way to achieve this is shape language. I think we all know by this point that square shapes feel dependable and steady. Triangles feel dynamic and maybe a bit threatening, and circles feel soft and comforting. The thing is, there are more shapes than just those, with different connotations, and most characters that aren't extreme caricatures won't be entirely made up of simple geometric shapes anyway. The key is to accentuate parts of the character's appearance that are important to understanding them better, repeat important shapes, and add some details that allow for dynamic movement. You first want to sell who this character is. Use the basics of shape language to help you tell your audience immediately whether your character is a small cinnamon roll, a quick and agile thief, or a bulky frontliner. Next, showcase what's unique about them. Make special features bigger, like wings on an air-based dragon, or fins on a water-based character. Giving your OC an unusual power, specific heritage, or rare physical trait, make it shine. When I made Camilla, my Garuda warrior OC, I showcased her being a Garuda because her heritage is very important to her. My OC with albinism has brightly colored clothing that makes his stark white coloration stick out. My other character, who's secretly a dragon, has sharp features you wouldn't normally see in a halfling. Take your concept and sell it up front. A nice trick I often use is repeating a certain shape throughout a character's design. Scales, fur, or feathers can have markings in this shape, or you can give more human-like characters unique jewelry, tattoos, or clothing for this purpose. I have one Zelda OC who has triangles on all the hems of her clothing for a not-so-subtle nod to the Triforce. My dream-based OC uses spirals and stars. And I even have one character who has tiny squares all over her clothing, and powers that manifest as pixelated-looking shapes. Using shapes like moons, stars, spirals, diamonds, or teardrops can give your character an instant visual identity without even adding color yet. Lastly, always give your character some aspect of their appearance that's dynamic, something that moves dramatically when they move or emote. I'll talk more about emotions later, but when your character does or feels something important, it should be visually apparent. This is why that quick-moving rogue has a flowing cloak, or that cute animal sidekick has a long tail and big ears. A character who stays static has much less opportunity to be dynamic and expressive, and emotion is what makes art art. So make sure to give your character an opportunity to show that off. Physical features are the things that will probably change the least about your character throughout their story. They may switch an outfit from time to time, acquire new props, or get a few new scars, but their physical characteristics, and especially their face, will usually remain constant. Of course, physical features are largely dependent on species, and you have less room to play around with them depending on the species your character is. But remember that you're allowed to bend the rules, there are no canon police, and never bending the rules will quickly lead to a forgettable character. If the species your character belongs to has specific physical traits, either emphasize a few, add some that don't belong, or remove some that would normally be there. My gold dragonborn fighter has really large fins and tendrils, because those are defining characteristics of gold dragons. My main MHAOC has bat ears and wings, which instantly tells anyone looking at her that her power is flight and superhearing. And be careful to hold that edgelord tendency back a bit when removing limbs and things like that, but it can be a useful tool. Your character doesn't even have to have lost anything. Maybe you've got a character who was born without characteristics their species normally has. That could be a disability because of hybridization, being unique subspecies, or weird magic science stuff. A wizard did it. No other explanation. Of course, the most important part of a character's physical appearance is their face. Facial features are what people will see the most, and they're the most important tool for selling expressions. Big eyes and ears make a character look cute, of course, but they also allow for bigger emotions. Consider giving your human characters unique makeup and your animal characters distinguishing markings. And when you do this, try to highlight important parts of their face, like giving a humanoid character eyeshadow or a dragon a different color on their snout. Eyes matter a lot too. I usually pick an eye color that contrasts with the character's face. That's why you'll see a lot of saturated blue, green, and even yellow or red in my OC's eyes. Bright eye colors can really draw attention to the eyes, and after all, eyes are the window to the soul. In general, you want to take the physical features your OC's species has and twist them around a bit, highlighting, adding, or even removing details. And never forget to pay attention to your character's face. Well, what about outfits? I'll admit I struggled with designing clothing for years, and I still kind of do with modern day outfits, but that means I spend a lot of time working on it. Like I mentioned before, you want some piece of your character to move dramatically. Well, if they don't have physical features that allow for that, your next option is their clothing. A big cape, a scarf, or even wide sleeves can accentuate your character's movement and make them feel more dynamic. When designing clothing, one thing I always try to do is break it up into different shapes, not leaving too big an area that's just one color. Sleeves that are a different color from the torso, for instance, help make a character more easily readable. A belt makes a clear line between torso and legs. And of course, clothing can change your character's shape a lot. Wide sleeves or pant legs, capes or cloaks, and even armor can change your character's shape language drastically, so use that to your advantage. Remember what I said about repeating shapes? Well, that's really easy to do with clothing. Let's say I decided to make diamonds a thing for a character like Cadmus, my dragonborn fighter. I can make his cape end in a point and add diamonds along the back of it, and his sword belt can have a diamond-shaped buckle. Or for a character of mine who uses teardrops, I have a teardrop-shaped clasp on her shawl, teardrop beads hanging from the hem of it, and a teardrop pattern on her skirt. The possibilities here are really broad. Practicality is another thing to consider. If your character has protective clothing or props that are important to what they do, include them. And make sure to not have clothing that restricts your character's movement so that they can't do what they need to do. You don't have to include everything they use regularly or cover them in armor from head to toe. Once again, don't restrict them too much. But adding some details can really help make them more believable. For instance, when designing a D&D character, I always make room on their outfit for their main weapon or a spellcasting focus. And if they rely heavily on armor, I add in a little. Maybe a shoulder plate, a leather top, or chainmail under their shirt. Attention to detail can really pay off here. So, when you're deciding on an outfit for your character, think about how it can help with shape language, and consider what your character needs to have and use in their everyday life. One last thing to work on here is colors. A color palette is one thing that can instantly define your character. I usually choose 4 to 8 colors for an OC. This makes sure the color palette isn't overwhelming to look at, and if the colors chosen are different from your other OCs, it gives your character an immediate visual identity. To pull off limited color palettes, try looking for places you can reuse colors. Maybe blue eyes can be the same shade as a character's blue jeans, or their brown hair can match a leather belt. Repeating colors like this also helps make a design more cohesive. But what colors should you use? I personally find that some colors play nicer than others. Purple, for instance, it's my favorite color by a landslide, but it does not play nice with others. If you want purple in your color palette, you have to build it around the shade of purple you want, because a lot of other colors can clash with it pretty hideously. On the other side of the spectrum, blue and yellow play nice with everyone. Blue can easily calm down the color palette, and yellow is great for adding a little extra energy, or making bright accents that pop. Overall, you want to choose a small selection of colors and keep in mind which colors play nice with others and which ones don't. So yeah, those are all my general tips for designing characters. I'm considering making a video on drawing ref sheets, or one showcasing the design process for a few newish OCs of mine, so let me know which of those you'd like to see or if there's something else I should try. And hey, if you're on Artfight this year, go check me out! We can attack each other. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now!